Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. This is Steph Lee. By now, hopefully, you should know this, but if not, I'm the founder of Host Agency Reviews, and this is the Friday 15. Every Friday, 12 p.m. Central Time, we answer the industry questions you have been kind enough to submit. So I'm going to pop up if you're on YouTube where you can go ahead and submit your questions. And if you're listening in, you can either go to the show notes or go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15 to submit your wonderful questions. And today we have on again the lovely Lindsay Taylor Lauer from Travel Leaders 365. Hello, Lindsay.
Hello, Steph. Happy Friday.
Thank you. So this is okay. I am actually in the Galapagos right now. We are pre-recording this. So I think I'm having a lot of fun. I'm envisioning me snuggling with all the animals. It's just so great, Lindsay, just in case you were asking. Thanks for asking.
Some of those lizards freak me out in Galapagos. I don't
know.
Oh,
Galapagos is going wonderful. Thank you. I'm just having a blast. I'm excited for everything. Lizards, blue-footed boobies, seeing the stuff in the ocean. I just want to hug it all.
Oh my God. I can't. I like the fuzzy wuzzies. I can do the flurry, the cute little, the fluffies. I can't do the lizards and the turtles and they scare me.
Oh, wow. That's shocking.
I can't.
We're going to change the subject. That's really hard for me to hear. You don't like the tortoises?
I don't like anything that's not fuzzy. They freak me out. It's too much. It's too scaly. I can't do it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move into okay. Well, first, we're going to do a really quick note that we have been getting ready for Host Week, which every year happens the last week in January. So this year it kind of runs into February as well, but it's the whole last week in January. We're getting started earlier than we normally do, which is very exciting. And we are looking for our call for speakers, and it's open right now. So if someone you know, or if you'd like to do a presentation or a panel and you're interested in it, or if you're just interested in trying out your public speaking skills and this is kind of a nice way to do it because it's virtual, so you don't actually have an audience. The challenge there is being exciting in front of the screen, but it's a kind of a nice way to get your chops wet. So Lindsay, you did a EduSpot last year, right?
I did.
You did. Was it scary? How was it?
It was not even a little bit scary. It was super easy and everything flowed just fine. And I don't think I messed up too much. So
no, and the audience for Host Week is super interactive. So that's also very fun. You have a chance to pre-record or you can do it live. We do suggest live because the audience is so great, but we work with you if it doesn't work with your schedule or if you're deathly afraid to do it live. So at any rate, I'm going to pop up. You can go to hostagencyreviews.com/speakers, and that will take you to more questions, answer all your questions about it. And there's a form where you can apply. This will be open for about another month, but definitely submit it now. We love new speakers. So want to hear from you. All right, Lindsay. Let's get into the questions. So this is a fun one, the first one, because this actually came in from a review. So thank you to PioLin88 who wrote this review, which has a question in it. And speaking of, if you're liking this, why not go and write a review for us as well? So this is what PioLin asks. Wow, I love your podcast. I started listening to it a few weeks ago. I love the different topics and success stories that are covered. I love the ideas that I'm hearing, and it gives me new things to consider and try out. Maybe I'm not there yet. They are currently on episode 11 of Travel Agent Chatter, but they would love to hear about how travel advisors deal with visas. Is this something that they handle, or is it something that they allow the clients to do on their own? If they do handle it, do they charge a fee for this service? Lindsay, this one's all you.
Let's talk visas. So when I was an advisor, when I had clients, I would handle their visas for them, but that's because I have control issues. So you can handle it yourself as long as you're being very precise, you're being very meticulous. Massive liability is there, right? If you submit something incorrectly, if something's wrong, then that's on you. So as long as you're being very detail oriented, CIBT is a company that you can use for visas, as well as G3 visas are the two that I've used. There are several others. Be careful of who you use. Obviously, for so many different reasons, but you can definitely use a service for that. Off the top of my head, I'm not recalling if it was commissionable. I do not believe it was commissionable to process that. At that point, because you're providing an additional service, I think it's absolutely proper to go ahead and charge a fee, because we have to get compensated for the professional services that we provide. However, depending on the client, depending on the trip, you might want to just go ahead and include that in your overall trip planning fee, consultation fee, whatever you want to call it. You can go ahead and include, obviously it's going to cost money to do it through a service. If they want to go ahead and do it, so like India is a very easy visa to submit yourself online. If you want to handle that, you can. It's just your comfort level, your own comfort level, your own understanding of what they need, how they do it. And then I always recommend asking your friends and family, like even passport applications and stuff. Make sure that you're staying on top of what that all looks like as you're processing it, just so that you can advise clients appropriately as they have those questions. Visas are no different.
Yeah, and just a note on passports too, because people have been having such trouble getting their passports in time right now. So if there's any new advisors that are listening to this, one of a great resource that you can provide to your clients is, number one, talking to them in the very beginning about having that passport 6 months from when you get home, having it so it doesn't expire before then. And then if they do need to get one, let them know there's a long lead time. If they're, say, booking a month and a half out before their trip and they need a new passport, it might not come in time. So have them do an in-person appointment if they can. And then if that doesn't work and they can't get it in time, you can always reach out to your senator and they will have a liaison on staff that can help you or your client navigate that and get the passport in time.
That's an important one.
Yeah. And so one thing on this too, Lindsay, so have you ever used Sherpa? Because that's, it was a startup a few years ago. They're established now, but out of Canada, and they do visas and e-visas. And I know they work with agencies as well.
I've not used them myself. But I'm sure there are so many that are really great. I would definitely recommend, if you find a new one, just vet them. Make sure, ask your host agency, maybe ask your consortia if they're part of any of the bodies, ASTA, any of the recognizable travel bodies. It's usually a good indication that they're quality. But yeah, there are a lot that are really, really beneficial, great to use, and easy.
Yeah, well, we'll link to CIBT, to G3, and to Sherpa, so you can all take a look at that. Let's see. All right, next question from Ashley R. Hello, so I'm starting the 7-day setup, but I would like your opinion on something. I found a website name that I do really love, but it's $1,000 for the domain, and that's not something I would be able to afford. I was thinking to add dashes between the words. Would this be fine? Also, the trademark is dead for that name, so I don't see any possible trademark issues. Should I trademark or just register with the state? So let's tackle the first part of the question, Lindsay, about the $1,000 domain. If you had the money, is this worth it?
I don't know. It depends on what the domain is, to be honest. If it's your business name, that's what you're going to be known as. I think it's a wise investment, because that's how people are going to find you. I think the risk in adding too much complexity to a website, if that's going to be your email domain as well, people are going to mess it up. So if you want people to actually be able to contact you, you probably want something that's easy to spell, that doesn't have, I always have a problem with travel leaders, right? TRAVELLEA, right? There's 2 L's. But when you're looking at it, you type it, you miss out on an L. So it's even little, then that's a simple one. Like everybody knows it's called travel leaders, right? So I think it's one of those things, if you've got too many complex characters, it might make it problematic. I think if it's the name that you want, and this is what you want your business to be named at, this is what you have, it's $1,000 is probably a wise investment if you can find it. But it's a difficult call to make, because it is, money's finite and we have to be smart, especially as we're starting up. So it's a hard one.
So one of the things I will say is that those prices on domains are often negotiable if you reach out to the person. So that's something you could try as well, is reach out to them and say, like, I don't have $1,000, but I can give you 500 or like 450, whatever it is, that's your budget. And I would go a little bit lower than what your actual budget is, so you can negotiate within there. But that's something to take a look at. And I think, like with the dashes, I'm going to put a link into our article on choosing a travel agency name, because we talk about things like the complications for like host agency reviews. People always forget the S. So I always have to be like host agency reviews with an S.com. You'll have your little spiel that you give, but there's some tips in there that might be helpful to you. And then when we're looking, all right, so when we're talking about the trademark, because that's another issue. So no trademark issues, but should they register the trademark, start working on that, or just register the company name with the state? Lindsay, thoughts on this? I know you're not as familiar with trademarks.
I'm not super informed on the trademark side of things, but I'd always say as you're establishing your business, definitely do whatever you need to do with the state, with the government. Make sure that everything is in a row, however you want that to be. Your tax information, you want that to be what your business name is as you're going to file, kind of all that stuff. So just make sure that you get that in a row. But as far as trademarks go, I'm not super well versed on trademark stuff.
Well, I happen to have a couple of friends that are trademark attorneys, which I didn't even know was a thing. So I did reach out to them and kind of check in on this. So let's see. So first thing, register with the state for sure. Ashley, that's something that you will want to do and will have to do. So that's your first step. In terms of the trademark, so I'm going to link to a past Friday 15 where we had another trademark attorney, a friend of mine, came on and talked about the difference between trademarks and service marks and the mistakes that people commonly make. And I would say that for your trademark, I wouldn't start working on the application yet. Number one, it's really expensive to use a trademark attorney. They're expensive. The filing is expensive. And if you want to do it yourself, you can, but I will tell you that there's very specific wording that they use, and it's not an easy process. And it's kind of like being your own attorney or something. Yes, you can go to court and do that, but you're not going to speak the language, and they're going to be like, yeah, no, this is so, why are you even wasting our time? So that's something to think about. But I will say with the trademark, so one of the things they'll ask you in your application is the earliest use in commerce. So you'll want to remember like the first time you brought your website domain up or you got something printed, keep a record of that for your application. And like what we did is you're kind of creating a breadcrumbs of you using this term, which will give you there'll be some protections in terms of kind of like a common law marriage, like a common law trademark, even if you don't have a trademark, but it's not a huge protection. Obviously, if you get the federal trademark, that's good thing. But I would wait until you have about a year's worth of information that you've been using this and no one else is using it. Then what'll happen is once you put that application in, they're going to do research and make sure no one else has been using it before you. So if you've done all your homework and don't see any trademark anywhere, it should be okay. But that's something to kind of be aware of. So great question though, Ashley. And then our last one today is from Anonymous. And they are asking, how much do you have to say when you want to break up with your host agency?
This is why they're anonymous.
I like that it's break up with the host agency.
It's true.
Can it just be as simple as, this is my 30-day notice to end our contract? Thanks. Any recommendations for ways to follow up to make sure you get any owed commission post split? Lindsay, what's kind of with Travel Leaders 365? What's the breakup process like?
The breakup process. So for us, there's a day's notice situation, just so that we can kind of get our ducks in a row as far as that goes. As far as what you have to do is what your contract dictates. So get really familiar with your contract before you break up with your host. Make sure you've read your contract. Make sure that you know what you're obligated to do. Make sure you know what they're obligated to do. There might be clauses in there that say that they are permitted to hang on to funds for however long. Make sure that you're taking a peek at that. As far as delivering the news, I always say keep it as brief as you need to, right? If you have a really long-term relationship with them, you might want to give them more context. Go for it. If you don't, it's a business relationship at the end of the day, right? So it does feel like a breakup, and we often do kind of create additional relationship layers there that don't actually exist, for better or for worse. But at the end of the day, you are making a business decision for your company, and you need to decide what to do. So you're choosing to go, I relate it like a real estate broker, right? If you know any realtors, they have been probably with several different brokers at any point in time in their career. It's no different for travel advisors and their host agency. And so give them as much or as little information as you want. Just make sure that you're abiding by your contract. And as far as them paying you out your commissions, that's kind of where it can get sticky. We've recently had some encounters with some other agencies that haven't necessarily been super willing to be easy to work with for advisors that have left them, which is very unfortunate.
Is that your way of saying they aren't paying the commissions
They're
very
not.
easily? Yeah.
Not yet. And so, but that's one of those things, contractually, they're allowed to do that. And so, to the advisor, I'm like, I'm super sorry, but you signed this contract also, and they're abiding by, yeah, ethically, should they just pay you out? They probably should, but per their contract, they are allowed to do what they're doing. And so I think just kind of having that realistic view of things is important. Make sure you know your contract, make sure you have your contract. Make sure you have all of your bookings that are going to be owed under that relationship. Make sure that you're not just relying on the agency's provision of reporting. Have your own. Just hopefully, in a perfect world, nobody does anything nefarious, but we don't live in a perfect world. So make sure that you have that data as well. And then just be prepared to kind of stay in touch. Some agencies have different protocols for those commissions after the fact. I always recommend just having a very clear accounting on your own of what you're expecting to come in, how much it is, on and on. And so just make sure that you're lining up your documents and your priorities kind of in I'd have it all in writing.
Yeah.
And that contract, though, is going to be your best and most important thing to do.
Yeah, I'm going to put in a couple of resources for you, Anonymous. The first one is things to look for in your travel agency contract with your host agency. That'll be great you could look at the one with your current host, but especially for future host agencies, things to look for and red flags. The other one we'll post up is an article on what to do if your host agency is not paying commissions. In your particular one where they're just holding on to them, or if they're holding on to them because contractually that's what the contract says, there's not going to be a whole lot you can do, unfortunately. But the other thing you want to check in, so what some advisors do is if the host agency only out the commission, if you're still with them, they will very strategically start moving new bookings to the new host, and they will pay fees at both host agencies. With their old host, they'll pay it until it makes financial sense that they've gotten enough of their commissions. And then once they don't really have any commissions left, or it's not worth collecting the rest of them, they will terminate the relationship with their host agency. So that's something that you could do as well if you don't feel comfortable, or if your contract says that you have to stay on as an advisor in order to receive commissions. One thing I will mention is the travel industry is very small. Not that relationships always end well, but it's very small. So try to do it as nicely and delicately as possible, because people move around in the travel industry all the time. So that's just something to be aware of. And then let me see what and you kind of talked about, I would make sure also, and this is all just being overly protective, because most host agencies are going to be ethical and help you out, follow the contract. But you may want to download, like if you have any data within their system, like all of the commissions, like Lindsay said, have your own record of them. If you're using their CRM, figure out a way to export that data so you have all of it, because on a few rare occasions, I have had advisors reach out to me where when they said they were leaving, the host just completely locked them out of the system, and they didn't even have any of the confirmation numbers for any of their clients, and it's been a huge mess. So again, this is all just being very proactive. Most host agencies act very ethically, but those are some tips for you, and wishing you the best of luck on your breakup and the new life ahead.
Also, email accounts too. It's amazing how many different platforms we end up using that belong to our host. So I think just take a full account of what are you using to operate your business, how much of that is dependent upon your host, and then proactively kind of put those pieces into place to protect yourself.
That's a great point. Thanks, Lindsay. Now, if someone wants to get other great points, what's the best way to reach you? I'm going to put a link into Travel Leaders 365's profile, but
I am ltaylor@tl365.com.
Perfect. We'll put that link in the show description as well. So, just some news on upcoming hosts. So, August 4th is going to be Outside Agents. August 11th is Lavarte Travel and Lori Spears. And then August 18th is going to be Jen Lee with Travel Planners International. So, if you have any questions, these are all host agencies. If you have any specific questions for them, please feel free to submit them by going to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. And again, if you have been enjoying our podcast, this was so exciting to find a review. I totally forgot about them. We would love for you to leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. So, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just having such a great time in the Galapagos right now. Can't wait to see you all next week. I'll be back in person. So, happy weekend, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.